Well, Saquon Barkley entering year 3, one of the great running backs in the NFL, although the Giants mired at number 29 on the preseason power rankings, and they deserve it. This one was stunning to me. The Giants have the worst record in the NFL over the past 3 seasons at 12-36, and that includes the Browns going 0-16. And the Giants are still the worst team on a 3-year cumulative record in the NFL. That is an embarrassment for your favorite team, Chris.
It is. It hurts my heart. But I do believe this. I do think they've turned the corner here, and there's things to be excited about with the New York Giants team. First off, the more time that's gone on, I've been more and more impressed with the things I've read and seen of Joe Judge. I'm a believer in the coaches they hired there. Joe Judge, the coach, Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, who I worked with in New England as the defensive coordinator. They're men and people I believe in, and I do think they're really damn good coaches. So it's unfortunate they haven't been able to coach yet, but I do think that they're going in the right direction.
Well, let's see what these damn good coaches can do in a division that is among the weakest in the NFL. Over-under win total for 2020 with Joe Judge in his first season as head coach, 6.5. Will you dare to go over?
I really want to go over. I think this is a team that can surprise people, for a few reasons, right? I mean, first off, they got a lot of big people. Dave Gettleman, it's a love-hate relationship with me and him as a Giants fan, all right? It's like you with Kirk Cousins. Like, some days I love him, some days I love him not. And as far as, like, big people up front, offense and defensive line, nobody's going to push the New York Giants around. They got more big people than any team in football, maybe other than the Baltimore Ravens. So it's going to give them a chance. And, of course, I like some of their stars. So I guess if you're going to put a gun to my head, I'm probably going to go under at, like, 6, though. I really think this can be a 7-9 type football team.
Well, okay, so you're going under at 6.
I'm
you're
going
saying they
under.
could be 7-9.
I feel
the
like
over-under 6.5.
I know.
You're going under.
I'm going
I'll
under.
go under too.
Yes.
Because I think 6-10 would be an improvement, and it would be a good season for the Giants. And maybe they could be better than that. But that's why over-unders sometimes are vexing, because you pick the right number and you don't know which way to flip that coin. But I'll say under as well. I don't know how good Washington's going to be. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia and Dallas. Philadelphia, if players can't stay healthy, they're going to be clustered around 8-8. The Cowboys around 8-8. Weren't they all? Nobody was better than 8-8 last year, right? What did the Eagles
went 9-7.
8-8 or 9-7? 9-7.
Yeah, 9-7, and they're the only team in the division that's kept their staff the same. So they have an advantage there. That's what, to me, when I look at the Giants, that hurts. I mean, Joe Judge trying to implement the New England ways, the New England system, Patrick Graham trying to, install the Bill Belichick defense. That's going to be tough. I mean, there's a lot of rules, as we've talked about there, and the fact that they haven't been able to be with the players and implement this new program and system is going to make it harder on them.
All right, you mentioned your love-hate relationship with GM Dave Gettleman. Over-under on years left on the job, 1.5.
Oh, man. I think as the way it sits right now, because he is not loved here in the New York area as of right now, it's going to depend on this year. I'm going to go over. I'm going to say he gets 2 more years. I am. I'm going to say at the very least he gets that. I think the Giants are going to perform a little bit better and be a little more competitive than people realize this year. I think that does him some justice and maybe buys him at least another year.
Now, this is a guy who did build a Super Bowl team in Carolina. He inherited Cam Newton, in all fairness, the most important player on that 2015 team that made it to the Super Bowl and gave the Broncos a run for their money. I am going to say over because it has to be over. You can't change your GM after changing your coach. You can't. Too many of these teams are on this weird track where we fire one or the other. And do these teams not realize that it's so much better to have shared accountability, right? They either both stay or they both go. And if that's the atmosphere you develop in your organization, what happens is when things start to fall apart, the coach doesn't have to worry about the GM whispering to the owner about how badly the coach is doing. The GM doesn't have to worry about the coach going to see the owner to complain about the GM, because the coach and the GM recognize we either both stay or we both go. So we better work together. Why do teams not realize that that's the easiest way to avoid a dysfunctional organization. You can't let the coach think he can win a power struggle with the GM. You can't let the GM think he can win a power struggle with the coach. And what do we have in New York over the past several years? You got this revolving door, and the worst thing they could do, because they're not going to fire Joe Judge after 1 year, the worst thing they could do is hire a GM other than Dave Gettleman, because the GM is going to be immediately thinking, how do I get that coach that I've always said would be the guy I hire if I become a GM?
I mean, Mike, you're right. There's no doubt. I mean, there's just a lot of franchises in football who don't get that and don't understand that that's what makes the really good team successful. You know, look, the teams that we seem to talk about it on a yearly basis have a lot of the things you're talking about, whether it's the Patriots, the Ravens, you know, the Steelers. I know the Steelers aren't in the Super Bowl, but they're always relevant and a good football team. It's all that same conversation you're talking about. I do think that there is some potential for this relationship to be good, though, between Gettleman. You know, Gettleman, Boston guy, in your face, you know, what you see is what you get, real football guy. And I think he's got, you know, coaches that are similar to that. Joe Judge, a Philadelphia guy who's in your face, worked for Belichick, Nick Saban. He's not going to hold any punches. And like I said, the two coordinators are the same way too. So I think this is where, because Joe Judge and Patrick Graham and Jason Garrett's been a head coach, I think they're going to really help out Dave Gettleman ultimately, because I think they're going to also help him and give him a vision of what they want in their systems. And ultimately, that's what you're talking about, and that's where good GMs and teams work out. Bill Belichick and Nick Caserio work out because Nick Caserio up there in New England knows how Bill's thinking. He knows what he's looking for at every position on the field. Oh, wait, you know, we like our defensive tackles like this. We like our linebackers like this. And that's why it works. I think there's a good possibility that could work here. And Gettleman, I don't think, is too egotistical to overpower everybody and do that way. He'll listen and want to build a team. And I think, honestly, he wants to build big physical teams. And these are coaches that come from the big physical school of coaching type teams as well. And I think that's why that marriage has a chance to work.
One more before we take a break. Yeah. We haven't mentioned it today. We've talked about it in the past. Jason Garrett is the offensive coordinator. And you got a lot of fans who roll their eyes and groan at the prospect of Jason Garrett running the offense, but one of his biggest flaws as head coach in Dallas was he couldn't do both simultaneously. Yeah. But he'd proven he can be a good offensive coordinator, and if you bring that Dallas approach with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and the weapons they have.
Evan Ingram, right? Yeah.
They could, so over under 17th in the NFL in total yards per game. Are you putting them in the top half of the league or the bottom half?
I'm putting them in over. I am. I worry about the Giants' defense, the secondary coverage. Offensively, I think there's some chance for some. We talked about some of the names. I think Daniel Jones has superstar potential. Saquon's a superstar, like you said. Evan Ingram, if he can stay freaking healthy, is one of those George Kittle special type tight ends too. And then Darius Slayton last year is a rookie. And then, of course, let's not forget Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate. So there's something there on the offensive side of the ball with a good system and a quarterback who's going into year two who was very impressive in year one, to where I think definitely they can be in the top half of football on offense.
Last year, the Cowboys were number one in the NFL in yards per game with Jason Garrett as the head coach. All right.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.